Well, hello, friends. God's blessed us and kept us through another week. He's not failed us. He's been with us every step of the way. I'm so thankful He's that kind of God. Hey, welcome to Friday's edition of Take 5. This week, concerning the life of Joseph, we've talked about the dream killers of those haters and liars and forgetters that will absolutely do everything they can to snatch that dream away from you, and you've got to hold on to it and hold fast to that promise that God's given you through all of that. Then we begin to talk about maintaining our character even when we've lost our coat, because that's what happened to Joseph. They stripped his coat, that coat of many colors that represented what he would be one day. They stripped it from him, but he never lost his character. As a matter of fact, we learned that Joseph served with excellence while he was in the pit and in the prison. And we learned that Joseph maintained his integrity and did not give into sin while he was in the pit and in the prison. And all of this was equipping him for what he would do in the palace. One more thing that I want to deal with today, and that is this: we must learn to trust God's sovereignty. Oh yeah, when we trust God's sovereignty, it will help us endure the pit and the prison so much better. Now, as a young man, God gave Joseph a dream that was going to make an impact on his life, and then his life was going to make an impact on the entire world. But for 13 years, Joseph's life has gone downhill since he was sold into slavery by his brothers at age 17. And during that entire time, that whole period of 13 years, God never explained to him about his brother's hate. He didn't explain anything about the pit they threw him in. He didn't explain anything to him about the human trafficking that he would be a part of. He didn't explain anything to him about Potiphar's wife and the lies that she would tell. He said nothing to Joseph about the prison that he would be in. He said nothing to Joseph about the people that would hate him and the people that would lie on him and the people that would forget him even while he was in the prison. God said nothing about those things to Joseph, but Joseph endured because he believed that God would make that dream a reality. Now, all along the way, you can bet Joseph was probably confused. He didn't understand quite possibly what was going on, and he really had every reason in the world to doubt God. I mean, this has taken 13 years, and everything that could go wrong has going wrong. He had every reason in the world to be bitter at God. I know people that doubt God and are bitter at God for much less than what Joseph endured. But 13 years later, it all became very clear. The Bible tells us that Joseph was eventually promoted to second in command there because Pharaoh had two dreams that nobody could interpret, and he heard about Joseph through the cupbearer, and Joseph comes and stands before Pharaoh and interprets the dreams and tells Pharaoh that there's 7 years of prosperity coming to Egypt, but it's going to be followed by 7 years of famine that were going to be so bad that they would forget about the prosperity. Now that's tough. He said, Pharaoh said to Joseph, now what should we do about this thing? And Joseph told him what to do, gave him a plan for it. And Pharaoh said, you know what? You were wise enough to know the dream. You heard from God about that. Then I want to put you in charge of this. And immediately, bam, right there on the spot, he became prime minister over all the land of Egypt 13 years later. And the Bible said that God blessed Joseph so much that when the 7 years of famine came, not only did Egypt have food during that time, but they had stored up enough that the rest of the world, at least in that Middle Eastern area, were come to Egypt and buy food for them. And among them were Joseph's brothers and his father, the brothers that sold him into slavery. So 13 years later, well actually it's probably longer than that, because 13 years and then 7 years of prosperity and then about 2 years into the famines when they came. So 22 years after They sold him into slavery. Here they stand before Joseph. They don't recognize him. He speaks in Egyptian dialect. He's wearing Egyptian clothes. He's wearing Egyptian jewelry. He has an Egyptian hairstyle. They don't recognize him. And 22 years later, here stands the guys that beat him and sold him into slavery, standing at the feet of Joseph, wanting to buy food. Now, I just wonder, what would you do if you had that face-to-face encounter like that? I know what I thought about doing. I'd have them boys, I'd blow them up, man. I'm done with you guys now. You did that to me, now you want something to eat? No, I don't care if you starve to death. But this wasn't the case with Joseph. Instead, he said these words that we read from Genesis 45 because he learned to trust the sovereignty of God. Oh, by the way, part of the lessons that he learned during this past 22 years and the first 13 while he was in the pit and in the prison, part of the lessons that he's learned was how to handle people that deal with you like this. So it was needful that he did that. So here's what he said to his brothers. He said, don't be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. God sent me before you to preserve life. See, he doesn't even give them credit. He said God did it. He said, for the famine has been in this land 2 years, and there are yet 5 years in which there will neither be plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you a remnant on earth and to keep you alive for many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh and the Lord of all his house and ruler over all the land of Egypt. You meant evil against me, but God meant good to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. He wouldn't give them any credit for the wrongdoings. He wouldn't give the devil any credit for the hurt that he endured. He said God did it. Every step of the way, God did it. It was his plan. He's sovereign. He saw the end of this thing from the beginning, and he planned it all out, and I just have to trust him. From the pit to the prison and finally here at the palace, God did it. Joseph trusted the sovereignty of God. What about you, friend? Can you say that about God today? Can you truly say that you know without a doubt that God will keep you? Can you truly say today that it wasn't ever the devil in the first place, but God allowed these things to happen because he saw the bigger picture? When you've got a dream or a hope or a promise from God and you find yourself in a bad place like Joseph was for a long time, your first response is to desire God to get you out of that place and get you into a new place. But can I tell you something? Most of the time, God doesn't want to take you out of that place and get you into a new place. He wants to make a new you in that place, and then that old place will feel like a new place to you when you let God make a new you. And that's what he did with Joseph. Well, hey friend, it's been good being with you this week. I got to get out of here. I look forward to being with you Monday when we start Take 5 all over again. I hope you have a great weekend. Whatever you do, trust the sovereignty of God. And if he keeps you where you are, even if it's a bad place, why don't you let God make a new you in that old place, and that'll make that old place feel like a brand new place. Have a great weekend, everybody.